Hi everyone, this is Tashina from Logical Harmony. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a demo and review of the Too Faced Peach Perfect Foundation. My skin is combination dry. It's definitely more on the dry side lately. And since I've only seen this foundation used by people with oily skin, I thought it'd be really good to do a video talking about how I make it work for my skin and just my experience with this foundation. This foundation's cruelty-free, it's vegan. I do have a full list of vegan products from Too Faced on logicalharmony.net, so I'll make sure to link that down below. And if you're curious about this foundation, just keep watching. So when this first came out, I was a little bit skeptical because it is a comfort matte formula and a lot of matte foundations just don't work well with my skin. I really wanted to try it because I love the Born This Way foundation and I wanted to see what this one was like. I had only seen reviews of it on people with oily skin. I hadn't seen anything from anyone with like combo dry skin or dry skin, and because of that, I was honestly even more intrigued. I did pick this up a few months ago and then Too Faced sent me some as well, which was great since I self-tan, my shade does change. So what I purchased myself was no longer a color match, and that's why I hadn't done a video on it. But now that I have a color, I can share that with you guys. A little bit about this foundation from Too Faced website. It says it's transfer resistant, medium coverage, creates a smooth canvas for flawless, comfortable matte wear that's never cakey or mask-like. It says it's 14-hour photo-friendly wear, smooths for a It's 14-hour photo-friendly wear, smooths for a flawless finish, and is oil controlling. I definitely wanted to put all those claims to the test. I've been using this for a few months, so I definitely have. And at the end of this, I'm gonna share my thoughts with you on this foundation. For now, what I'm going to jump into is how I make it work for my dry skin. I did pick up the entire Peach Perfect collection, at least what was vegan, which is a handful of products. You guys can find that in the vegan list from Too Faced on Logical Harmony. So I was really excited that it wasn't just the foundation, but some of the other products. One key that I found with this foundation to really make it work for my skin, and I think this is going to be perfect for anyone that is on the drier side or has dry skin, is starting with a good moisturizing base. So I do my normal skincare routine and I do my normal moisturizer, but the Kypris Pot of Shade is what really makes this foundation work well for my skin. I've talked about this in a few different videos with other foundations that do have like a drier finish. This stuff is a game changer for those products. If you ever struggle with any foundations being too drying and too tricky to wear, definitely pick up the Kypris Pot of Shade because it's going to change the game for you. This moisturizer is an SPF 30, so it helps you get your sunscreen in. It doesn't have any flashback in photos or on camera, and I have honestly found that this has been amazing with every foundation, specifically those that are a little more on the matte side. So you just take a little bit and massage that into your skin. It absorbs really nicely, really quickly, and it gives so much extra moisture throughout the day. And I think that is what helps keep this foundation looking nice throughout the day as well. On top of Pot of Shade, I applied the Primed and Peachy Matte Skin Perfecting Primer. This does have a little bit of a peach tint to it, which I find helps like to brighten up the skin. It's a really nice primer. It's a little bit blurring, and I just smooth on about 2 pumps. The pumps they don't come out in like even quantities, so it kind of varies, to be honest. But I smooth this all over my skin. It definitely does help to mattify, and you notice like it immediately takes down any sort of shine that you have going on or any sort of glow. I could see if you have oily skin, this just being great on days where you don't want to wear makeup because it's going to help reduce any shine, and it does kind of smooth and blur out the skin as well. Next, for the foundation, I like to apply this with a damp beauty blender. I've tried with a few different brushes, and on my skin it just doesn't work well with a brush. It makes it look dry throughout the day. It looks fine at the time of application, but later on in the day, it makes my skin look a lot more dry. So if you have dry skin, skip a brush, just go in with a beauty blender. If you have oily skin, a brush might be perfect for you. So I apply like 2 to 3 pumps of this and I gradually build it up. And to me, that is the key. This foundation dries down very quickly. So I like to just take a little bit and work on different areas of my face. So I like to blend it out on like one entire cheek first and then go into the other. And I don't put any product on my face unless I'm going to be blending on that area. So I typically pump it into my hand, use my beauty blender, and just put it right where I need it and right where I'm blending it. I find that getting a good base coat down first is essential, and then I just add in a little bit of coverage where I want it or on areas where I know my skin might get a little bit oily throughout the day. I think it's good for building up. It does say it's medium coverage. I agree with that. If you have any sort of blemishes or anything like that, it might not do the best job of covering it, but you can put on a second layer, and that I think brings it up to full coverage. You can definitely build on the coverage of this, which I love, and it just looks really nice on the skin. I will give Too Faced that. It looks very smooth. It looks very even. I feel like it helps to blur your skin, especially mixed with that primer. And I think that a key with this, the same with a lot of matte foundations for me, is just, yeah. Bagheera has some things to say there. I think that a key with this, as with a lot of foundations on my skin, is to just blend, blend, blend. And I've noticed that that just really helps distribute the product evenly. It keeps it looking better throughout the day. And using a damp beauty blender for that, I feel like just helps add a little bit of moisture back into the skin. To set my face, I do not use the Peach Blur Powder from Too Faced. This is a really nice powder. So this launched with the collection, and it's meant to be a blurring powder, and it's meant to go with this collection. On my skin tone though, what it does is it makes my skin very pink toned. And I've noticed that the foundation doesn't do that, but it's the combination of these two, and it makes my skin look very pink toned and a little more red, and I don't naturally have pink tones. This is a really good setting powder, and I've used it with other foundations without that issue. There's just something about this combo that does not work for my skin. If you can use that combo though, it is gorgeous. I've tested it before. It is really, really pretty. After I apply the foundation, I do conceal and liquid highlight, and for that, I like to use the Born This Way Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer. This is the new one from Too Faced. This one is vegan. The original Born This Way concealer is not. This has really nice coverage. It plays really, really well with this foundation, and I was pleasantly surprised by that. They didn't come out with a concealer with the Peach Perfect collection, so I'm really glad that they launched this one. This is amazing with the original Born This Way foundation, but it's also an amazing combination with this foundation as well. And I like to just apply that everywhere that I need it and then blend it out with a damp beauty blender, and that works really well. It just blends seamlessly with the foundation, and it wears really well with it throughout the day as well. It doesn't create any sort of lines or anything weird. It just works really good. It looks nice. What I use today and what I consistently use with this foundation is the RCMA No Color Powder. I mostly just set underneath my eyes and then take whatever is left on the brush to set the rest of my face. You could very easily get away without setting this foundation at all, and maybe only setting the parts where you get a little bit of creasing, because it does dry down to that nice matte finish. You don't really need a powder in there. So I just set underneath my eyes and then lightly dust it everywhere else around my face. This is such a solid setting powder. It works with everything. I think everyone needs this in their collection, and this just seems to work best for my skin with this foundation. I really wish that the Peach Blur Powder did, because it's gorgeous, but it is what it is. And one thing that I've noticed about the foundation is other products just blend really nicely over it. It doesn't matter if I've set it or not. I kind of have the same results. So when I applied my bronzer, which was the Too Faced Chocolate Soleil, it just blends really nicely. It blends really evenly, and I feel like everything with this foundation, it just, I'm trying to think of how to say it. I feel like with my skin, a lot of times matte foundations tend to grab onto the product, and it's difficult to blend out, and I don't experience that with this foundation at all. So I did use the Chocolate Soleil bronzer, and then I went in with the Peach Glow Trio, which is a bronzer, a blush, and a highlight, and I used just the blush and the highlight from that today. They're both really pretty, really natural, and they give the skin such a nice, gorgeous glow, which I feel like really balances it out on my skin. Because I do have skin that's on the drier side, I do like to add a little bit of glow back in, so I like to use a luminous blush. I like to go in with that highlight. Let's be real, I like to go in with the highlight no matter what, but especially when I'm using a matte foundation, I like to just add a little bit of glow back into my skin, and I feel like you can do that very easily with this foundation. To set my face, I used the Peach Mist Mattifying Setting Spray. One thing I really like about this is it's mattifying, but it's not drying. A lot of mattifying setting sprays are, in my experience, just too drying for my skin. They make my makeup just look bad. It's like my skin doesn't have the moisture in it to combat the mattifying setting sprays. This one, I do not have that issue with. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things about this collection from Too Faced is that it does work with skin that's on the drier side and you don't have any issues. It doesn't make my skin look cakey. It doesn't look like, you know, I have dry patches, things like that, which is really common for a lot of mattifying products. And it smells amazing. This whole collection smells like Peach Jolly Ranchers, which were my personal favorites growing up, and I love them. What I like to do is apply the setting spray, and I do a very generous amount. I will say that I wish it sprayed a little more evenly. I feel like the mist is not super even, but that's a lot of setting sprays, so what can you do? So I like to just spray on a generous amount and then I just buff it in with my beauty blender. For me, that just helps everything smooth out. It really helps the powders and the foundation combine and settle in well. I have noticed that if I don't do that, sometimes I get spots from where like the mist settled and hit a little bit heavier on my face, so it does just help blur everything together. So for my final thoughts on this foundation, again, I've been using it for a few months. I just haven't done this full-on review video. It's a really good foundation. I do think it totally lives up to a lot of the claims. It is a comfort matte. It does not feel like I have a mattifying foundation on my skin at all. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel drying. It doesn't look cakey. And I've noticed that throughout the day, it consistently doesn't look cakey if I prep my skin well. Again, having the pot of shade from Kypris is really essential for that. If I don't use that, if I just go straight from my moisturizer into the primer, then this foundation, it can sometimes look a little bit drying on different parts of my face depending on how my skin is at the moment. Because I have combination dry skin, sometimes I get really bad dry patches, sometimes I don't. And so if I have any skin that's dry, this does accentuate it without pot of shade. It is definitely transfer proof. I have tried and tried to transfer it onto things. It doesn't budge. It's literally like glued onto your face all day. It comes off really easily, especially with like an oil cleanser, which is my favorite way to remove it. It just lasts. Like that's one of my favorite things about it is that it doesn't budge. And I do think the finish is really nice. It stays looking really fresh throughout the day. And one thing that I do like to do is just touch up with the setting spray throughout the day. That definitely helps too. If I feel like I am feeling like it's a little drying or on the dry side, just spray some of this on, buff it out with a beauty blender, and I'm set and it's good to go. I don't need to touch up throughout the day. I don't need to touch up any powder or anything. So even when I have worn this on really hot days where I'm sweating or times where my skin is a little more on the oily side, it definitely helps to keep it matte, but it is a natural matte finish. So it's not flat, it's not too matte. It does have just that little bit of glow in it. It looks like your skin, but better. And I really, really like that. It does help keep oil under control. I think it's a really good foundation. So I think that if you are someone with skin that's oily, you're going to love this. It's going to work amazing for you. If you have skin that's on the drier side and you want to finesse with the products and with your moisturizer, it's also an amazing foundation. I really, really enjoy it. I do find that picking your shade can be a bit tricky. I don't want to say that it oxidizes because I don't feel like it necessarily does. That said, I feel like the other products you use with it can have a big impact. Like I said, the Peach Blur powder, for me, this combination made my skin look really pink. And so for that reason, I feel like it's best to get a tester if you can, or pick it up somewhere like Sephora where you can easily return it if it doesn't work for you, and just see how it works with your other products that you love. If you're using a translucent powder like the RCMA, you probably won't have any issues at all. I have seen reviews where other people say that this oxidizes on them. Again, I don't have that problem, but I do think that is worth noting. So if it's something that you feel like you might have issues with, pick up a tester of this, see if you can get one at Sephora or Ulta, and just see how it works with your skin. I think that is important. I really like it though, and it is one of the few matte foundations that I would suggest picking up. I don't typically like really matte formulas. They're just too drying for my skin. They don't work for me typically, but this one is really, really great and I really enjoy it. So I would suggest getting it. If you've tried this, comment, let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll see you guys next time.